Hello everyone, it's Natasha from Treasure Books. Yes, I know we've seen millions of videos and tutorials on making stuff with envelopes. I, for one, have a whole playlist, but lucky for us, envelopes are easy to come by and the possibilities are endless. In this tutorial, I'm bringing to you an easy envelope notebook featuring a spine and 2 signatures and 3 or 4 or 5 pockets. These are perfect for gifts, mini journals on their own, or even additions to our larger journals. I'll also be sharing with you an extra idea, different to what I've done here, towards the end of the video. I promise it'll be fun. All right, let's begin. All the envelope notebooks that you've seen snippets of so far contain 3 envelopes. So for this project, you will need some envelopes that are exactly the same. You don't have to have 3. You can do 2, because all we're doing is this. There are no secrets here. You can do 3, which is what I'm going to do and what all of my booklets are like. You can do 4, you can do 5 or 6 or so on. I mean, you probably will run into issues if you do it this way, but it can be done. And I will tell you what you can do to avoid those issues. So this is, how many did I do? 5 envelopes together. So I think this would be pretty cool if you're doing like an ephemera folder kind of a thing, a booklet that opens up and reveals all these pockets. But if you're going to sew signatures, I suggest 4 maximum, or even better, just 3. All right, so the first thing we need is envelopes that are exactly the same. It doesn't matter what size they are or what they look like, as long as they're exactly the same. So you won't be able to do, well, I'm not sure actually. Let's just give it a quick little look. I was going to say you're not going to be able to do a booklet with 3 different envelopes, but you know, I mean, I haven't tried it, have I? So how can I claim such a thing to be true? Okay, well, in this case it is true, because you just can't do it. So let's just stick with 3 envelopes that are exactly the same. Okay, honestly, I really like this square size, so I'm gonna go with it, even though the color doesn't really come up well on screen. I think we're gonna do maybe 2 different things, and I will show you kind of how to make this work. It seems simple, but there are little issues that arise as you're making the project. All right, so first things first, we're going to glue this flap onto this, but we want to glue the whole thing, okay? So first of all, we're gonna apply glue stick. And then we're going to go with a different type of a glue that's actually going to hold long term. And at this stage, you don't want to go all the way to the crease, because it will seep out. It will seep out. Okay, we don't want that. All right, so you can see how I kind of stayed away from the crease. First envelope, easy peasy. You want to line it up really well. And then close, make sure it's lined up. I mean, it's very simple at this stage, right? I love simple projects. So the plan for this video is to make one of these notebook things. And then I also want to experiment with just making like 6 envelopes together or something like that. Just doing like a ephemera folder, let's say, because I haven't done that. And also I want to show you these, the ones that I've made in detail, so that you can kind of get inspired. All right, so we've got 2 envelopes together. And now for the third one. The third envelope is also the closure one. All right, so your third one is the one with the flap. That's going to be the closure flap. All right, so now you might be tempted to just do the same thing here, which essentially we are going to be doing, but there's going to be bulk because we're going to be sewing the signatures in. So you want to fold this the way it's going to be, and then this might be a little bit confusing, but let me show you, and then it's not going to be confusing. So we already know that these two are going to be glued together, but before we just plop it down and glue it down, we want to put this flap over the top. So this will actually be the front of the journal. All right, put it on top, and now you can see how much space is left between this envelope. I don't know how well you can see, but just trust me when I tell you there's space between the envelope and the crease. So if you had gone and glued this down like directly the way that we've done the first one, then already you'll be starting to face issues with storage. Like already it's now moved because it's not glued, but already there's issues over here. Okay, perhaps too much detail at this stage. So let's just do this. This goes on top. This is going to be the front. And now we're gluing this down this way. Rather than gluing the envelope on top of it, we're gluing it on top of the envelope. All right, listen, I have just started filming and it takes me a little while to get into the zone. So I apologize if I'm over explaining and confusing along the way. So now we're following the same kind of directions. We're going to put the glow stick. I like to put the glow stick on because it covers the spots that this glue doesn't cover. And again, don't go all the way to the crease, but do apply glue onto the very edge of the envelope. And you'll see why in a moment. So we're going to apply glue here. And then we're going to go and glue this down. And the reason why we do it that way is so that there is no glue seeping through. See this? Completely glued down, and there's no glue seeping through and coming out this way. And you can see how much space is left here versus how much space is left here. So the more envelopes you add, the more space you're going to be needing here. And that's why I thought it might be good to actually do a project with just the envelopes and see how many we can fit in and what we can do with it apart from, you know, the notebook thing. All right, here is the front and this is my closure. So as you can see, the glue stick that I used warps this paper. It doesn't warp all paper, but for some reason it warps this paper, perhaps because it's thin, and I don't like the look of this, so I'm gonna cover this. And you know what? I'm going to use my fancy paper because life is too short not to use the pretty things. That's my new motto. So I'll be using my beautiful fancy paper that I have. That's why I have it, right? I have it to use it, not to hoard it. So all I'm doing now is I'm going to cut it to size, but I'm going to leave a border around the paper. I want a bit of that envelope seen all around, so I'm cutting it slightly smaller. I'm such a silly poop. I could have used my 6x6 papers instead of cutting this one down. But okay, here it is cut down to size. And while I'm at it, I might as well create a pocket. So this is the pockets that I was talking about. We already have pockets, all right, because we're using envelopes. But now you can create more pockets if you wish. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut myself a little half circle there. And this is my recent invention. It's not an invention. This is a mirror and it's round. I always struggle with this kind of thing because I don't have a tool that can, you know, like a circle tool, and it never crossed my mind to use this mirror that's been on my desk for years. All right, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna cut this. The thing with envelope projects is there's just so much possibility. We're gonna keep this, of course. There's just so much possibility and so many things that you can do and so many ways it can take you. All right, here we go. I mean, you can still see the warping, but do we care at this point? I don't. You might not care in the first place, but you can't deny that the pocket looks better than no pocket. And now, leaving the opening free, we're going to apply glue onto 3 sides and glue this down. You know what you gotta do. You have to glue it down. Okay, isn't this, I mean, already it's looking so much better. Look at that. I love that. Love, love, love. Okay, next thing we're going to do before we do anything else is preparing the signatures, but we're not going to bind the signatures. We're simply going to get the signatures ready. All right, so I can bind 2 signatures here because I have spine number 1, spine number 2. And so far we have 4 pockets, 3 here and 1 at the front. All right, so I'm gonna get my pages ready. For all of the little notebooks I've already made, I had 6 sheets, but it all depends on the thickness of your paper. So the paper that I'm using is quite thin, this one at least. So I'm going to go 4 sheets for my first signature and 4 sheets for my second signature. Now I am using the paper, these papers, they're all exactly the same, just so we can get on with it, right? But of course you can do like all different types of papers. You can do junk journal style, you can do like tea dyed and all that kind of stuff. And you can probably do more than just 4 pages, but as we go along you'll kind of see and know exactly what to do if you want to have more pages than just 4. Okay, so now as you can see my signatures are too tall, but they actually fit perfectly this way, which is why I chose this paper. I wonder how would it look if I just kept them this size. That's not too bad. Like you don't even have to cut it to size. You can have like a journal like this. Maybe I want to do this, a little something different, eh? Because the next step here would be trimming obviously the signature to fit within the envelope. So it would look like this. What do we think? Do we want to experiment? In which case I don't think this paper goes really well. I think tea dyed paper or something like that, coffee dyed or grungy looking would look quite nice. All right, so I talked myself out of leaving it long and then I talked myself back into it again. So what I'm gonna do is leave this. I'm just making something different to what I've made before. So we've prepared the signatures and the signatures go into the spine. So first of all, we're just gonna plop it in. We're gonna plop that one in there and then this one in here, and then we're gonna have a look. At this point, I'm checking if I need to shorten my pages. So I'm gonna pretend I trimmed the pages down just so I can show you. At this point, you're just checking if there's any curving of the, because if the pages are too long, when the journal is closed, they're going to do, I'll show you what they'll do. It's no big deal. They're gonna do a little bit of this. See how this signature doesn't have enough space? All right, so I mean, it's no big deal, but it can be if there's quite a lot of curvature. In this case, I mean, these pages are fitting absolutely perfect, so I don't need to go and trim the edges off at all. At this point, before we bind the signatures, you want to do the spine, and the spine is on this side. It's actually not where the signatures are, it's where the closure is. All right, so we need to make sure that we pop our signatures where they're gonna be, nice and snug against the spine. And then you take your flap over here, because you can see at this moment how it's curving funny. So you look at it and you see exactly where you need to make a fold to create a spine. All right, does that make sense? Don't be tempted to make a big spine. That's what I did on this one. Here's a mistake number 1 that I did. All right, I created a spine that was way too wide for what I need, and then it kind of wants to do this. It wants to kind of flatten in. I'm not a fan of that. I want it to be nice and like looking like this. Okay, so we don't need a spine bigger than what we need. Does that make sense? No, of course it doesn't. So what I'm gonna do simply is, signatures are in, we're folding this over the top, and where I see that it's starting to curve, that's where I'm gonna give myself a little mark, and that's where I'm going to score a spine. So you see that? How it's starting to curve there. I could perhaps even make it smaller. I mean, it's not rocket science, and if it's a little bit bigger, a little bit small, it's not the end of the world. So anyway, I'm kind of reminding myself over here. Okay, I've marked myself where I'm gonna score. I'm gonna take my signatures out so that I have a nice flat little thing over here, and I'm gonna score that line. If you don't have a scoring board, fret not, because I'll show you in a moment what you can do. Okay, we need this nice and straight because we need that fold nice and straight, and I'm actually going to score in between those 2 lines that I made. I don't know why it keeps moving. Okay, here we go, nice and simple. And there's my spine. All right, if you don't have a scoring board, you need something squishy like a mouse pad thing, a ruler, and something. Okay, don't press too hard because this is what's gonna happen. All right, this is what you don't do. I just kind of went pressing very hard. So just give yourself a gentle little score, or you can do it this way. Pop your ruler down where you want to score, and then this is how I usually do it, to be honest. Forget about the squishy stuff. Draw yourself a line where you want to score, pop your ruler against the line, and then go with something underneath, and then do this against the ruler. All right, that's the easy way to do it. And then you fold, and in this case I'm gonna rub out the markings, and I'm going to fold that score line. There's my little spine, and now pop the signatures back in. Now we can see if I need to do any adjustments to the signatures, if I need to cut the pages, if this is going to work beautifully as it is. And what you want is this. See that? Closes perfectly, everything is nice and snug. I don't need to do any more cutting. There's no kind of gaping like this because the pages are too long. If the spine is perfect, and if it wasn't, you're kind of stuck with it now. It's no big deal. Anyway, we're gonna move along to the next step, and the next step is binding the signatures in. Since my signatures, the top and the bottom especially, are going to be visible, I'm going to give them a little bit of an ink around the edges. I mean, I do that anyway. The very first signature you're going to bind is this one here, the very first one. All right, this needs to be in before you start with this one, because the thickness over here will determine kind of where you're binding the second one. All right, so just always start with this one. Pop it in nice and snug against the spine. I'm going to go in with this blue thread. And here's a trick that somebody actually left in my comments in one of my videos. When you're threading the needle, I mean, you probably already know this. I didn't know this. When you're threading the needle, if you're trying to put the thread through the needle, it's very difficult. But if you bring the needle to the thread, it works every time. And it has been working every time. And now I'm filming and I wonder if it's going to work, because usually things don't work when you're filming. Here we go. Bringing the needle to the thread. And oh my goodness, it worked, even though this thread is an absolute nightmare to thread because it splits. Anyway, let's do the project. That's just a little side. I'm sure you know this, okay? And I'm sure I've heard it too before. Sometimes you need to hear things a few times before they finally sink in. Well, I don't know, maybe that's just me. But let's bind this little notebook, shall we? We're going to do 3 holes. One there. It's kind of hard to see where I need to poke the holes because my pages are too long. All right, I think I did okay. 3 holes. We're going from the middle inside out. And let me tell you, I made 5 of these in the last 2 days. And that's 10 signatures that I had to bind this way. Let me tell you, like, it's the little things. It is the little things like this little tip with the needle to the thread and thread to the needle that makes a huge difference in the annoyance levels of crafting. Because, you know, some of the things that really annoy me is when I run out of thread in my machine in the middle of a project, when things are in my way, when I put my scissors or whatever right here and then they disappear into oblivion and I can't find them until the next day, when literally I just put them here. I don't know if that happens to you. I'm sure it does, because we kind of all go through the same thing, so I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I forgot to talk through the binding process. I was too busy yapping about other stuff. But I'm sure you probably already know the 3-hole pamphlet stitch, and if you don't, I still have another signature to bind. Okay, now let me tell you. First, I'm going to work this in just a little bit. All right, the first signature is in. Excellent. And now we are going to do the second signature, but we're going to do it with this in place, okay? Pop it into place and poke the holes where everything is where it should be. Hole number 1. eyeballing this here, number 2 and number 3, going from the middle out, then back in through the top. Where did you disappear to? This is another thing. Like, why? How hard is it to go through the holes I need you to go through? Okay, back on track. We're inside, and now we're gonna go out through the bottom hole and back inside through the middle hole. Excellent. Easy peasy. Putting the needle away where it belongs. So when I'm crafting, whether I'm filming or not, it doesn't matter. I have a huge mess around me all the time. And then when I stop to have a little break, let's say I'm in between 2 important steps, like now we've done the binding and we're ready to move on to the next step. I'm just going to take a little break, let's say. Before I take a break and do something else, I need to put away 3 things. That's my rule. So I'm going to go, I don't need this anymore. It can go. I don't need this anymore. Off it goes. I might need this, but I don't need this on one side and that on the other. I'm just gonna pop it away. Okay, that's it. 3 things done. I can have a little break, but we're not gonna have a break. We're gonna keep on going. The final step that's left to do in the construction of this journal is the closure. So these are the steps to follow. First, you need to cut yourself a piece that's going to be hiding the inside. We're not going to glue it down yet. We're just going to prepare it. So I'm going to use the same paper on the inside here. I'm going to open this so it's out of the way. And now I need to cut out this exact same shape. So this is going to be glued here. This is the correct side, not this side. So we're going to place underneath. And we're gonna bring it to the first fold. We're not covering the spine. Well, you can, but I choose not to because then things move and stuff like that. So pop it underneath and line it up with that very first line. Grab a pencil and trace. Keeping everything in place and tracing slowly. Excellent. And now I can see my tracing line. I'm gonna cut that out. Cut it out to you. Perfect. Preferably we want it the exact same size as the flap. Sometimes it can be a little bit bigger, which is actually not a big deal because it might give you a nice little border like this, a tiny little bit of a border if it's a little bit bigger, so it still works. It doesn't have to be absolutely precise. We are going to pop this to the side. Actually, I'm going to ink the edges. Okay, so you want to have this piece ready to go before you start attaching your closure. Okay, ready to go. Off to the side it goes. Now, for my closure, what do I want to do? I already kind of have a formula and all of my little notebooks have a flower, so I'm going to go with the flower. Also, if you've watched my video on DIY brads, if you haven't, I'm gonna have it in the link down in the description box. If you've seen that video, you probably already have a whole bunch of DIY brads ready to go. Here's my little brad garden just for a little bit of inspiration. Okay, we have buttons and all sorts of stuff, including stud earrings that I already made into brads. Okay, I'm gonna use this one. That's the one I pulled out. Anything will do, really. And I'm going to pull out some flowers from my flower box over here. Again, anything will do. Maybe we can do something like this. All right, I'm gonna go with that. Nice and easy. I am going to also just ink them up a little bit, or a lot by the looks of it. Maybe just the edges of this one. Perfect. Now, I really want to make sure that all of my pieces stay together. So I am going to apply a little bit of glue and then the earring is going to go through. So that's what it looks like at the back. You can use a brad, obviously. I'm using a DIY brad, but you can just use a brad. And I am going to apply glue onto all of the layers. Now that goes through. And finally, last little layer, and it goes. All right, perfect. Now I might do a little bit of inking at the back as well, just a little detail. Okay, that's ready to go. Next, I'm going to choose a string. What's going to keep this kind of closed, right? I mean, you don't have to because it's sitting nice and flat, but you know, I like to have a bit of something there. Okay, I'm going to use crinkle seam binding, just checking for a color that's going to work well. Perhaps I can go with like blue or maybe something more subtle. It's kind of shabby chic-ish. And I keep testing until something really speaks to me. Like this dark blue would go well, but it really doesn't. So far, this is the one that I'm really liking the best. You can see that. I think that's the one. If you don't have crinkle seam binding, which is what I'm using, you can go with something like this, twine. That will also look quite nice. So whatever you have in your stash, you use, okay? You can use like tea-dyed fabric. That will look good. You can use like ripped up fabric like this. This would also look good. Just keep testing. Okay, I'm gonna use this one. So first I'm gonna measure how much I need. So I'm gonna grab one end, plop it here, wrap it around like this, and leave myself an extra like this. Okay, that's the length. And I need double that length. So I'm gonna double it and cut. Okay, so essentially you need a double length that's going to be attached, go around just once, and then you have extra here. I could have had a little bit extra, but it will do. Next step is working out and punching a hole for our brad. Okay, where do I want it? I want it right here. So I'm going to check underneath. Where's that brad? Somewhere around there, and poke a hole. Excellent. Now this paper is very, very flimsy, so a little bit of masking tape on the inside, re-poke the hole. I can also do a little bit of masking tape on the outside because my flower will be hiding all of this, and re-poke the hole. Okay, because we don't want, with the opening and the closing of the journal, for this to rip through, okay? We want sturdiness here. All right, now, first thing we're going to do is attach this onto the closure. All right, let's do that, shall we? I'm gonna pop the two loose ends together and find the very middle over here and poke a hole through that. Now grab this and add glue. If you're using just a standard brad, you can just simply now put it through this, okay? But since I'm using an earring, and in case you are going to be using an earring too, which has only this one little prong rather than two like a standard brad, we want the prong facing away from the closure, so not towards the closure, okay? Does that make sense? See how this is going this way? We don't want the prong to go the same way because then this can slide off the prong. We want it the other way, the opposite way. Okay, take this off and put the prong through the opposite way. Let's do that. And push it through all the way. You're gonna get glue on your hands probably, but that's perfectly fine. Okay, prong going that way, closure going this way. Yes, yes. In comes the journal, and we're going to again apply glue. And this will probably be a little bit difficult for you to see what I'm doing, but you know what I'm doing. I am going to push this prong through the hole that I have here. Push it through all the way. All right, see how it's all coming together nicely? There's a method to this madness. I hope you can see that. All right, that's what we have. And now we shall put more glue. Don't be shy. If you're just using a standard brad, you just close the feet. You don't need to apply the glue. And then on top of that, you go in with masking tape. Oh, perfection. Oh, there's banjos. And flatten everything. That's not gonna be going anywhere. And now you see why we had to have our piece ready, because it will be, first of all, if you glue down straight away, you will have the prong or the brad showing through. No big deal if it is, but why would you when you can do this? All right. And second of all, if you didn't prepare this, how are you gonna trace around? How are you gonna make it perfect? You can't. So that's why method, you see. Okay, and now this simply has to glue on top. I might come in here and just ink these edges a little bit. Probably should have done that beforehand. Moving along, and I'm gonna apply glue all over this thing, only up to that first crease, because this is staying nice and clean. Get right to the edge, almost right to the edge, and glue it down, my friends. It's actually perfect size. There's nothing sticking out, no blue. When you're happy with the placement, you can go ahead and make sure it's nicely glued, and then make sure this is all nicely glued. So profesh. I'm gonna close this now. I'm gonna show you how I do the closure thing, but I'm not gonna fill this up because you know you put things in pockets. I'm not gonna do that, but we have a pocket there, and then it opens. You can do fun stuff over here. You can decorate, you can add like little pockets. You can add a little pocket like this, have a little something hanging out, you know, like a tag hanging in there, you know. Then you have another thing here, you can embellish. I'll show you my booklets, you'll get lots of ideas. And then you have your signature. Again, the same thing over here. Look how cool this looks. It's just, I just love it. And then we have another one here, and we shall call this project complete. And of course you have the back too, if you want to make it pretty. I mean, this looks a little bit warped. It doesn't bother me, to be honest with you. And then of course in comes the closure. So you can have it closed like this. You can have some little beads over here. You can do a little bow down here. If you don't have the big flower, it's probably easier if you don't have the big flower, but you could maybe use a button brad, and then you can wrap it around the button. I'm sure you know these things. But this is how I've done all of my books. I kind of bring these two strings around or under the flower from each side, just like this. So I'm like underneath the flower, and then simply tie a little bow. You don't have to tighten anything. It can be a nice loose little bow, and it doesn't have to be a pretty bow because crinkly, see what I mean? I could have used a little bit more extra string so I could have more kind of fluffy business going over here. But that is it essentially. That is how I made all of the booklets. And now I'm going to show you the booklets, and then I'm going to do the other thing where I use like 6 envelopes. I'm not sure. I wasn't planning to do it, but I'm going to do it. Okay, this is my favorite one because black and gold, you know. This is also an earring brad. The envelopes that I used are just black envelopes that I embossed. And then on the flap here, I kind of played around with some gold paint and that kind of stuff. I did a shallow pocket here rather than going all the way up like I did in the tutorial. And I have a little gold sticker there. Use my pretty paper. These are actually gift boxes. Anyway, it opens up, left that as it is, opens up again, and then I have some little, I just, you know, I mean, I didn't really put much thought into what I'm putting into the pockets because I just wanted something to kind of showcase. And I have little stickers, and over here, stickers or sticker, and another little pocket, and that's that one. Such a beautiful, beautiful little thing, right? Look at it. My favorite. The only thing is the spine, too wide. It didn't need to be this wide. And you can see how beautiful this looks and finished. You can't see the earring post, and you can't see any of the ugliness inside, all gorgeously covered up. And there we go, that one is done. Oh, beautiful. Next one I want to show you is this one. I used the tall envelopes, everything done exactly the same way. Open up. I'll show you what I put in the pockets. I have a tag in here, and then, oh, I love this one because I used like gold stickers and silver stickers, and then over here more like fancy schmancy stuff and like really beautiful paper like that. And I used tea-dyed paper for my signatures, and you can see like gold stickers. And then over here I have this beautiful tag. This is from a greeting card. And then turning the page, oh, I have another envelope. Look how cool this looks. It's an envelope, and inside the envelope is stationery to write a letter. You know, I just love how that looks. Isn't it beautiful? And again, same thing over here, the ugliness covered up. Gorgeous, beautiful. I really love when the closure flower comes almost to the end and then this business is off the project. I like that. Looks like a little clutch. Okay, fancy. This one, I didn't do any of the covering of the envelopes. Anyway, I'll show you. All right, we can breeze through this. So I didn't do covering over here because it's got this scalloped edge and it would just be a nightmare trying to like cut out the perfect thing. So I hid the ugliness with just a simple butterfly. So same thing. This is also an earring and same thing. I just covered it with a butterfly and it also has masking tape and all that business underneath. All right, let's have a look inside. Very simple, exactly the same, but here I have created extra pockets. So, and I did little, you know, little stickers. All right, so we have the envelope pocket and then I created these extra pockets that kind of go with the color scheme. You see this? You see what's going on? You know? So we have extra pocket here with some stuff and then envelope pocket and extra pocket. And then again, envelope pocket and extra pocket. So this little booklet has 6 pockets. And then I didn't do anything at the front here because it was just beautiful. Or I mean here, because that's the actual envelope and it's already embellished as it is. So I didn't have to do anything. It's just beautiful. And it's kind of, see how it's kind of layered because we've created this spine here. So I moved it away from the envelope below and we have this layer thing. I love it. Isn't that pretty? Let's breeze through the rest. Same envelopes as what I've done in the tutorial, but different colors. And this is what I was talking about. If you cut your thing a bit too large, it's fine because it gives you like a border. All right, a pocket here, same as what we've done in the tutorial. I just added some stuff in there. Open. Oh, I added an extra pocket here with some tags. And then I decorated over here a little bit, just added some stuff in there. And obviously I decorated on all of them by the looks of it, added more stuff in there. And then over here, you can just go to town with this little project idea. So pretty. And one last little one and then we can move on to the next thing. Ooh, exciting. This one is my least favorite, which is probably why I left it to last because these colors, I don't know. I mean, this could have been a different color, but the inside is pretty. Here we go. Over here, again, obviously I filled out the pockets, but I also added paper clip stuff basically on, and I have some of these pretty delicate die cuts, like little things in there, you know, using a paper clip, and there we have it. Simple. I mean, it doesn't get any simpler than this. And embossing your envelopes also makes quite a bit of a difference. And I also didn't have to hide any of this stuff here. So, all right, now let me just do this, put them all on screen. If you're not inspired by now, well, then I don't think there's much help from here on out. All right, anyway, let's do the thing. I have 6 envelopes and I'm gonna just attach them all together and see what happens. You know, listen, I'm gonna leave that playlist down below with the envelope hacks and stuff. There's so many things that you can do with envelopes. So we can do this. I've done that before, so I'm not gonna do it today. We can attach them kind of this way where they slide into each other. We're not gonna do that now. We're doing something different. This is something I haven't done before. A part of me is feeling like, what if this doesn't work? I'm going to be wasting these pretty envelopes. But it's not going to be a waste because I'll think of something. If it doesn't work, I'll think of something. Oh, look at that. Pristine on the other side. Okay, now this has to go on here. But because this is going to be bulking up like crazy, instead of gluing this on this, I'm going to do this and glue this on this. So each envelope is going to keep moving further and further apart, leaving more space at the spine. Otherwise, they won't be able to close. Do you know what I mean? You won't be able to close them without pages bending. So see, notice how I didn't go all the way to the edge with my glue, but I am going to apply the glue onto the envelope edge and glue. All right, so we have 3 envelopes. You can already see almost non-existent spine. Oh, you can see that spine here. Now, I'm going to close everything, grab my next envelope, and I'm not going to glue the envelope onto the flap. I'm going to wrap the envelope over here. I hope I'm making sense. And glue the flap onto the envelope. Repeating the exact same steps. And glue. Let's see what's going on the inside. No spine. Bigger spine. Ooh, even bigger spine. You see? Do you see what I mean? Because if you keep gluing them to the spine, you won't be able to close it into a book. Yes? Yes. All right. We're up to number 5. Pop it on. Bringing it into place. And apply that glue. Stay away from the spine. Apply onto the edge of the envelope. And close. 1 more to go. We can keep going, but we won't. And every envelope you glue on, you want to check the inside. See how I have, I don't know if you can see, I can see I have a little bit of glue seeping through, and it's kind of a little bit crooked, so I'm gonna have to fix that up, reassemble. Oh, that's looking perfection, absolute perfection. All right, 6th envelope. It's gonna go on here, but we shall do it this way. Just to go in place. Look at all this space. And close. See, glue seeping out because I went all the way to the edge, and now the flap is actually not covering everything all the way to the edge. Okay, let's have a look. First of all, let's just double check this last one. Look at all the space at the spine compared to the very first spine. So each envelope you add, you need more space and more space and more space, and you can go 7, 8, you need more space out, stop at 6. And now we have this cool thing. How cool is this? Like a little ephemera envelope. I don't know, this is just an idea that I had when I started filming this video today, and I thought I'm gonna try it out. This is pretty darn cool, I must say. And then perhaps I can explore all the possibilities in another video with this idea. Here's one idea. You could, for example, have this as your 6-monthly budget book. You can have money in there for January, February, March, April, May, whatever, for groceries. You can have your January receipts, February receipts, you can have coupons, you can have, I don't know. But since we have 6 envelopes, I thought half a yearly little thing. You could also perhaps have a signature in between first 2. Have a signature here, and always bind your signature, obviously, with these together and closed. You kind of bind like this. And then you can have 2 free, and then you can have a signature here. You bind a signature there. I mean, possibilities again. So much stuff we can do. I love this idea. Should I come back to this? Do you reckon I should do like a whole separate tutorial? What are your thoughts? And with that, my friends, I think I'm going to leave you because I think we've covered everything there is to cover. Please let me know your thoughts, and also if you have any questions or if anything is unclear. I think it's quite nice to do a project like this every now and again where you can make a whole lot and feel so accomplished because you made, how many did I make? I made 6 in the last 2 days, and you know, it makes me feel good to have some pretty things done in no time, right? I also love working with envelopes. I'm going to link the playlist down below for all the envelope goodness that I have on my channel. And also, please let me know if this is something that you want me to explore a little further. Okay, thank you so very much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!